Dr. Cronin, thank you to each of you for your testimony here this afternoon. We'll now have an opportunity for some questions. It was stated by my ranking member at the outset of the committee that, in her view, things haven't changed. Not much has changed, and I think some of the arguments against ANWR, that's true. Those arguments are still the same that many of us recall from a long time ago. But what I've heard today is a recognition that we really have seen change in the 7 years since this committee has last considered the prospect for the 1002 area. The technology, as Mr. Schutt has outlined, has changed considerably. But I also think that the data, the science, the research that has been collected over the 40-some-odd years that we have been operating up north can better inform us. And you mentioned mitigation, Dr. Cronin. You mentioned those technologies. Mr. Glenn, you speak of the caribou and the fact that the caribou are around the camps. They are on the roads. They're not deterred by man-made activities. Now we recognize that is not while they are calving. That is clearly a more sensitive time, but I would like a little more discussion here just in terms of how we are utilizing the science that we have collected to be better stewards of the wildlife. The infrared that is being used to detect polar bears in a den and how we are avoiding contact or disturbance, and again, some of the other mitigation measures. The proposal was made that perhaps there might be some form of co-management of caribou if we are to move forward with the 1002. I'd like to open up that discussion, if I may. And let's start off with you, Richard.
Thank you for the question, Senator Murkowski. As Dr. Cronin stated, the issue of timing comes out strongest, and the exploration, of course, of the coastal plain, what happened in the winter, which is not a calving season, and so there's already that.
Before you move on, I think it's important for colleagues to understand, when we talk about exploration in Alaska in the wintertime, it's not because we like to be out in the cold and the dark.
Right.
It is because we are required to do exploration during this period. If you might address that as well.
The Navy began exploring for oil and gas on the North Slope in the 1940s, and they discovered very quickly that summertime, which is when a lot of exploration happens in warmer climates, is not the time to try to move about on the tundra, because everything you do that needs heavy equipment gouges itself into the thawed-out surface. And so over a few short years of learning the hard way, the industry tailored its practices to operate in the winter when the ground is frozen, so that even if there was no snow cover and no ice road, for example, the tundra kind of protects itself by being in a frozen state. That's just the general paradigm of exploration the way it exists today. Flash forward to today, in addition to those hard lessons learned, they've developed ways to explore with seismic and drilling on ice roads and ice pads that further insulate the surface from the harmful effects of summertime disturbance of the tundra. So the calendar already dictates that the machinery is going to be around when the animals are less likely to be there. Now, my upbringing is from the central part of the Arctic slope, where sometimes caribou are around year-round. In fact, those of us who live from Fairbanks northward, we're caribou connoisseurs. We know when the marrow changes flavor. We know when the fur is the best. We can tell the difference between pregnant and non-pregnant cows, for example. And calving is a special time. And if you're a caribou hunter, you know that a mother caribou that's already carrying a calf inside her, she wants to lay down. And she'll lay down anywhere as long as she's not being threatened by something. And it's the pregnant caribou that shows the least, I don't know, Dr. Cronin might know better than me, but I've hunted a lot of caribou, and when they run away from you, the pregnant cows are the ones that still stay laying on the ground, or for some reason run away and come back. And so the nature of a caribou carrying a calf is different than regular caribou behavior. All of that is this May, June timeframe when all of the exploration tools should be out of the theater. Once development happens, if development happens, the facilities and the pipelines are constructed to minimize their effects. The pipelines are elevated so caribou can walk unimpeded underneath the pipelines. And the facilities are concentrated under small, focused pads. There's a lot of stuff happening on one piece of gravel. And the caribou are free to do whatever they need to do on the undisturbed tundra that surrounds the pads.
Thank you. I'm over my time. Let's go to Senator King.